Hello, college football fans. Welcome to another edition of Urban's Take, featuring three-time national championship winning coach Urban Meyer, along with yours truly, Tim May. I'm the prompter. But Urban Meyer, here we are, man. It's conference championship weekend. We've gotten here so far. And just what's your take right now? Where are you guys, by the way? Big noon kickoff this weekend. A couple of big-time championship games out there. Where you guys HQ'd?
Yeah, we're out in Vegas. We've got the Pac-12 championship, which got huge ramifications. If USC wins, they're in the playoff. To think the job that they've done, the coach and the players, to completely transform a team, and they are really, really good defensively. There are some weaknesses, but they've gotten better even on defense. But their quarterback's a monster. I've really the last few weeks studied them quite a bit. Caleb Williams will probably win the Heisman. It's amazing the transfer portal, which is relatively new phenomena. But it did it for Michigan State a year ago, and it did it for USC this year.
Yeah. We're going to get into that game in a minute, because as much as you just ballyhooed USC, they have one loss this year, and it's to Utah and your buddy Kyle Whittingham, a man you turned over the reins to when you moved on from Utah to Florida. We'll get into all that. You seem to have tentacles everywhere, if you follow my drift. But before we talk about the conference championship game, you were impressed with Michigan all year. Then it's the Michigan-Ohio State showdown, unbeaten versus unbeaten. Number 2, Ohio State versus number 3, Michigan, at home for Ohio State. And nobody questions where your heart lies in that one. Were you stunned leaving the stadium on Saturday? Were you more impressed by Michigan than ever before? What can you say that doesn't include expletives?
Well, I'd been a Buckeye since you could be able to say Buckeye, but I also grew up in the Bo Schembechler era, and not many people know, but I actually had a provision in my contract at Utah that I could leave for 3 jobs, and it was Ohio State, Notre Dame, and the Wolverines, and just because of respect. Now, I didn't say like, and especially when you're the head coach at Ohio State, it's much stronger than a dislike. It's a hatred. And it's a fear. I can say this now. I really didn't say it much then, but I operated under the case of fear, that because I am such the former players are heroes to me, the former coaches, I couldn't have had a better life growing up than in the great state of Ohio. So yeah. I always felt indebted to everyone, and it falls on your shoulders, and Coach Day's feeling it. I will say this, Coach Day's got a great program. There's easy to see if there's cracks in the foundation, and I've seen it. It's happened to me where you start, you have staff issues, you have recruiting issues, you have academic issues, you have legal issues, and Brian does it. Brian's a great football coach. He's got that thing humming. They lost a game, and it's a game you can't lose. So what do? You work hard to not lose that game, but don't let's my phone blows up and you start hearing just chaos, and that. Yeah, but that happens. That's part of that. When too much is given, much is expected. Ohio State, once again, I'm very biased. Best job in the country. By the way, the Wolverines are traditionally one of the great programs in America too, and they got a great coach and great players. Yeah, and they won.
Yeah, they're back though for sure, right? I mean,
well, they're a line of scrimmage team, and you know how I feel about that is that they dominated the line of scrimmage every game this year. Now, at times, their quarterback struggled, and boy, did he had the game of his life. Oh. And we're going to talk about that on Big Noon Kickoff. I'm actually showed a couple plays that the quarterback position, Tim's the most unique position in all of sport, and you have to be the most competitive. You have to be the toughest guy that there is, and I really believe that. He's a competitor. He showed on 3rd down and 3 from the 3-yard line. Yeah. They ran the Q sweep, and he got hit on the 1-yard line. And he got in there. That's JT Barrett type stuff. That's, to me, that's the toughness that he showed. And he's a young player. He's around for a while. So he earned a lot of respect of the country and his teammates.
It was pretty funny. He ran in front of his blocker and ran into the guy. The guy was going to block and scored the touchdown. I give it up to J.J. McCarthy. He had a day, without a doubt.
A day.
And I was going to ask you this. Put yourself in Ryan Day's shoes. But, my man, you're the only coach in Ohio State history, I do believe, with an extended service, let's put it that way, that never lost to Michigan. So you don't really know You went 7-0 again. You don't really know how that feels, right? I mean, you don't know what, I don't know. I guess the weight there is there to bear, right? I mean, what would be in your encouragement, I guess, to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes? Because as we're going to discuss, they're still in this thing based on what happens pretty much Friday night where you are there in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I think they and I've heard they're game planning for Georgia. You got a job to do. If
Yep.
they show up, they have the talent to go win this whole thing. We witnessed that in 14, that it's so much more than talent. It's also this team that's like this starts to come like this. And that's what, Cardell Jones. So, they're doing the right things. Ryan Day, I know he's a young coach and it's fourth year, but I sat there from day one. He is elite in everything he does. So keep steady in the boat, lean on your leaders in the locker room and leaders on your coaching staff, and focus on the task at hand. Task at hand right now is recruiting, making sure your team sticks together, and get ready. If you get the number called to go play in that playoff, you go win it.
If Utah beats USC, is Ohio State deserving to be that fourth team in the playoff? Why, in your opinion?
They're the second most talented team in the country. They were dominant on both sides of the ball. They had a bad game, but move on. So yeah, if TCU or USC loses, Ohio State is playing Georgia. I actually had the Wolverines number one this week. I think the committee's job is to go week to week. The performance I saw against Ohio State, they're the best team in the country right now.
Yeah. Second half, they went out and took it, just like the year before. I mean, something to be said for that, man. And Ohio State really had one bad half when you really get back down to, because they're leading at halftime, et cetera. Hey,
I actually just watched it this morning in detail. They were having their way in the first half.
Yeah.
They had, I want to say, almost 50 plays in the first half. Not enough points for that many plays, but they were controlling the line of scrimmage. They were running. They were balanced. And the second half, the Wolverines did a nice job.
Isn't it funny, though, before we move on, Urban, how Michigan hit two huge pass plays in that first half? One was a 10-yard hitch that the guy took for a touchdown. But Ohio State went after Michigan to stop that run game. Michigan countered with, what the heck, we're going to throw the ball. And they attacked what we have all thought was the weakest part of this defense all year long for Ohio State, that secondary on 50-50 balls, et cetera. And wow, that's actually pretty good strategy when you think about it, right? And Ohio State's got to really address that before he gets another shot, right?
Yeah, and the Wolverines had trouble. Their downfield passing attack was just the PFF, the statistics on down. We once again, we did this all on our Big Noon Kickoff, that the ability for the Wolverine receivers to separate and for J.J. McCarthy to deliver the ball in tight windows. He's an excellent thrower on the run all season long, but from the pocket, deep passes, he really struggled. And I think Jim Knowles went into the game saying, we're going to force him to go beat us. And in the first half, he kept, if they don't complete those two balls, I think Ohio State's up by 2-3 scores at halftime. Yeah. But he did. And give him credit. And the one touchdown was not a pressure, it was actually zone coverage where he turned the safety around. But once again, he hit him in stride. And you've seen that throughout the year that he wasn't doing that. So J.J. McCarthy became, in the Wolverine Nation, a legend that day.
But I always say, zone coverage melts down to man finally in the final analysis. And you take the fake to the outside, boom, you leave the guy inside. You have no safety help. It's funny, you got 3 safeties on the field and you have no safety help, right?
That's it. Once you get on the second level, it becomes man within your zone.
Oh, yeah. Get me excited here. Get me excited about Georgia, LSU, and Michigan, Purdue. Why is there a chance there? And you know what I'm talking about, for the underdog. I mean, just, this year, just when we thought we knew what was going to happen in college football, something flipped the script. You had Purdue flip the script on you a long time ago. I'm not bringing up bad memories. That's one of the few losses you had at Ohio State. Obviously LSU flipped the script on Alabama and then gets beat by Texas A&M last week. Go figure. Why should people think there's a shot there for pure chaos this weekend?
Well, you always look to the program, the leadership, and you say, okay, the head coach, coordinators, then obviously you go right to the quarterback position. And, And when you get to this level of football, how's the line of scrimmage? Because now talent becomes somewhat equated. You know, when you're playing teams, you're much better than.
Yeah.
So when you see LSU and Georgia, Georgia's the most talented team in the country, but LSU's got good players. They always will. They always will. I think they got a heck of a coach in Brian Kelly, time tested. He's a winner. You know, they at times don't look very good, like they lost A&M, but they can hang in there. Georgia's going to, you know, you're the defending champions. We've been there. You start to play tight with a lot of pressure because they've been told anything other than back-to-back national titles, you're a failure. Yeah. So there's a chance of that, but I still see Georgia in this one. And then the Purdue, Jeff Brom is not a good coach. I think he's an excellent coach. I think Purdue's got, you know, one of the best coaches out there. I think his game planning, I think he's tough. So his teams play tough. He's taken a walk-on quarterback and made him a very good player. He's taken transfers from Iowa and had these two good receivers now. And so he is very capable of an upset. You think about the Wolverines had a couple really close games this year. If they play like they did against Ohio State, this is a 3-score game. If they don't, it's going to be a street fight.
Wow. All right. Speaking of street fights, TCU, Kansas State. You've been a disciple of TCU. Maybe that's not the correct term, but, you know, it's a little too biblical there. But you've been an advocate of TCU since you first got to watch them face-to-face or live. How much of a challenge do they face against what looks like is going to be a pretty healthy Kansas State? Maybe I'm wrong about that. Haven't got the latest update, but TCU seems to be that charm team of 2022. What's your take on that game?
Yeah, we've got to watch TCU quite a bit. The first time I saw them, I thought they were a really good team, but to start saying they're a playoff team, their defense wasn't good enough. You know, and their offense, their quarterback, Duggan, is tough as nails. But since then, they've been a top 4 team. Jay went down to Austin, Texas, and intimidated, outplayed Texas in Austin. And then they took Iowa State, a very good defensive team, and beat them senseless.
Yeah.
They're not the biggest team. You're not going to see a bunch of NFL draft picks. The receiver, Quentin Johnson, is one of the best.
Yeah.
Duggan's a tough nut, tough out. But what they are, extremely well coached. And I used to always tell teams, get the chemistry. A team that won't be beat can't be beat. What I mean by that, the mentality is I don't care the score. We've had a couple of those teams. A team that, you know, we're going to win this game. The mentality is give us the ball. We're going to go win this game.
Yeah.
They did that at Baylor right in front of our eyes in a tough environment. And everybody knew it. And I said, if they get this ball back, this TCU, they're going to win the game. So I'm a big believer in TCU. I think they win this game, but I tell you what, this is going to be a great Big 12 championship game. Is a must watch. I think it's going to be it's going to be really well played. They're both well coached. They're both really tough teams, and Kansas State's healthy. And it's I think the point spread is very close, so it's going to be tough.
Hey, real quick, if TCU was to lose this game, a lot of people are advocating this. If it's a close loss, there are some people who think TCU should still be in that top 4 in the final analysis. Do you? Of course, you know, you'd have to look at who's in the pool, right?
Right.
You agree with that idea? That have they had that? Because they've beaten more ranked teams than anybody, maybe the best strength of schedule out there.
Yeah, I think it's going to be real close. I think it's going to be, that's the committee, which I go back to. You got to watch the videotape. And, you know, on the committee, sometimes I look and, you know, they're all great people and they're volunteering their time and all that. But, you know, when they start watching tape, you know, what are you watching? You know, you're athletic director, you know, I don't have it in front of me on who's on the committee. I think there's only 2 coaches. But, you know, it'd be like me reading medical school applications. You know, I don't know what I'm looking at. So, you know, I think statistically they'll look at stats. But once again, you're playing different teams. There's a lot to look at. But the one thing you have to look at is the video. And I just think Ohio State has better players. But I'm a TCU fan. If it's a close game, I'd have to really, you know, I'm not asked to make that decision, but if TCU loses, I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to sit down and watch tape as if I'm a committee member and say, who is the better team?
Wow. Real quick before we move on to the checkmate moment, does your man Kyle Whittingham have it in him and Utah to beat USC 2 times in 2022. And I asked that because it's very difficult to beat a team 2 times in the same season. And you and I talked a couple of weeks ago about Ohio State and Michigan playing back to back. Are you kidding me? That could be coming in the revamped Big Ten, et cetera. But he almost started playing the small David versus Goliath card this week, but then he backed out of it because he realizes he has built Utah into one of the Goliaths, right? I mean, Utah is a very viable threat to USC's run to a college football playoff berth, isn't it?
Oh, they certainly are, and they have very good players. They're not all healthy at running back right now, so that's remain to be seen. But they did it before. I made this comment. I'm not a gambler, but if I was, I would not bet against Kyle Whittingham ever. That's how much respect I have for him. And when I say him, I mean everybody in that program. He's a reflection of that program. And when programs are built on toughness, that's a good thing. And he's a tough coach. They play tough. They're a line and scrimmage team. And once again, once you start getting these championship level games, I know USC can throw it all over the field and all that, but I'm just a believer. You got to be balanced and you got to be able to run the ball and stop the run. And how do you do that with toughness when you start getting to these level games? And I still think USC probably wins this thing, but I think it's going to be a fight. I think even early in the game, I think USC will, they'll get a jump on Utah, but just watch just the internal drive of a team like Utah will stay there and they'll keep fighting. That's what they did when they beat them. Yeah. Just kept hanging in there. I watched that tape as well. And you're watching the game and thinking USC is going to blow them out. But then they make a red zone stop here, a red zone stop there, get a turnover, score. And all of a sudden you're within a striking distance. And that's when well-coached teams like Utah finish it.
Yeah. That's what Jim Harbaugh had a great quote after the game on Saturday about Michigan when Michigan beat Ohio State, but he just said, any stop is like gold. Any stop in a game like that against an Ohio State kind of like offense is gold, and any stop against USC would be gold on Friday night for Utah. That's for sure. All right, checkmate moment. The one I came up with was Ohio State leads 20-17 at the half. They come out in the second half. Michigan gets the ball. Michigan has hit 2 big touchdown passes to stay in the game. And here Michigan basically at midfield, and Colston Loveland comes out of the slot. Ohio State's backed off into somewhat of a zone, but 2 receivers kind of run into each other and bring the defenders with them. And then Loveland just breaks free down the right sideline. Lathan Ransom was his coverage guy, it looked like. But Loveland's got, 3, 4, 5 yards on him. And J.J. McCarthy delivers a strike, 24-20. Ohio State never leads again. Those are the kind of moments. I mean, it was early in the third quarter, but that just set the tone for the second half, didn't it?
It did. And there was 3 big plays in that second half that were checkmate moments. Right, we got within a 1-score game. Yeah. And 75 yards later, Donovan Edwards crosses the goal line, outruns a safety. There was another goal line checkmate moment when we were in 4th and 9 or 4th and 10. And when you watch the tape, it looks like we had a fake punt call that would have, and Coach Harbaugh acknowledged it. Yeah. I mean, gutsy call, big time call, and they're a missed assignment. The snapper snapped at the punter, and we're lucky. Buckeyes are lucky it didn't get a block. So those kind of games, man. I mean, that's why coaches like me or coaches in general, just you lose sleep. You're like, did we cover this? Did we cover it enough? Because you can't say, okay, it's the players. You just never say it's a player's fault. Did we cover that enough? Because this situation, you drive yourself crazy. You can't cover every situation. But those checkmate moments, there are 3 big plays in the second half. And then when Ohio State on those 1st and 35 got it within striking distance in the plus area, and then we punt the ball out of the goal line. To me, that when they drove it 80 yards, that was a 14-point flip in my mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Urban, do you miss being on the sideline? Do you want to coach again? And are you having to turn down offers? I mean, what's going on, man?
I miss the players. I miss coaching, but I don't want to do it. I really enjoy what I'm doing now, and living a life and healthy, and it's someone else's turn to go do it. And so no desire.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Urban Meyer. We're going to be back next week. We're going to figure this college football playoff pairings out. Did they get it right? I mean, the only thing they can do is screw it up right now, because right now it's etched in stone unless somebody falls. But if 3 or 4 fall, Urban, they will really earn their hors d'oeuvres trays, right, that they're getting in that Dallas hotel, right?
Yeah, and Jerry DiNardo, who's a great friend and such a great, ambassador for college football. Yeah. This is $1 billion industry, and you got a bunch of volunteers sitting in a room deciding, and I'm not being overly critical, because I know a lot of them. They're great people, but you're making a decision that's pretty monumental.
Yeah.
And I'm just keep thinking there's got to be a better way. There's got to be you're trying to, be diverse enough around the country to have the right people in there. But, the bottom line, you have to get the 4 best teams in that playoff. And who has a qualification to do that? That's what you keep asking yourself. So they're going to earn their stripes. The amount of time that this takes, because I've talked to people on the committee, it's enormous.
Yeah.
The amount of time it takes away from your real job. And they're not receiving, they're not being compensated for it. So there's so many good things about it, but you just get worried. And we are on the back end of that thing a couple of times. I think our 2015, you watch the tape, we lost in a rainstorm to Michigan State. We were one of the 4 best teams in the country.
Oh,
there's no question.
Yeah.
But
that team was better than the year before, in my opinion. It was a matured version of 2014, which won the first college football playoff championship. Real quick, you just brought me something before we sign off here. You benefited at Florida from the BCS formula in 2006. Just kept hammering, hung in there. Would you advocate going back to something like that? A formula that, I don't know. What would be your take on that?
I get asked it a lot, and I don't know, Tim. I'd hate to give just uneducated conversation. We benefited in 14 when the committee picked us over TCU and because I kept the first string in probably longer than I should, and we kept scoring, which, is that the right thing to do? I have an obligation to the players first, the university second, and I did what I thought was right. Sportsmanship and all that, was it necessarily right? Or putting players in harm's way when you didn't have to? You had to get in that championship game. So there's a lot of flaws, but there's also, you can focus on the flaws always, or you can focus on the greatness right now. And it's pretty good. It's pretty great what's going on.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Urban Meyer with Urban's Take. We'll be back next week, like I said, to chop up the college football playoff rankings. Until then, Urban, we'll see you then.
Thanks, Tim.